Hi everyone, my name is Becca and today I'm going to be talking to you about how to become a product manager. So just to start, I'll give you a quick overview of the presentation that I've put together today. So I'll talk a little bit about my own journey into product management. I'll then talk about what is a product manager and what skills do you need to become a product manager. I'll also talk about how do you level up when you might not have those skills just yet. And I'll also share some of my top tips to help you find your first roles as product managers. So firstly, a bit of background about me. So 3 years ago, I was living in Hong Kong and I was running my own tutoring business. And at the time, as you can imagine, I had no idea what product management was. I hadn't heard of a product manager before. And really what drove me to start my own tutoring business was I really felt like there was a problem that I had to solve for young language learners at the time. And I did that for about 3 years, and that was really the beginning of my career. But fast forward to today, I am a product manager in London, and I work for an early stage fitness company called Fiit. So Fiit is a fitness app, and you can take workouts at home or at the gym, and my team looks after the mobile app. So as you can imagine, I didn't go from being an English tutor to a product manager straight away. When I moved to London, I continued to pursue a passion for education, and I eventually got a role as a project manager for an early stage edtech company. And it was really there that I learned about product development, what it meant to ship products, and became aware of the product manager role. And after some exploration, I realized that it was something that I really wanted to do as a next step of my career. And that's when I started looking for my first role as a product manager. And eventually I got that at a company called Birchbox. Birchbox is an e-commerce company, and there I was looking after the online experience for the UK and Spanish markets. So as you can imagine, it was a really interesting journey going from English tutor to project manager to product manager. And some of the insights and learnings I had, I hope I'm going to share with you today, and I hope they're going to be useful to some of you who are also trying to make the switch into product management. So the first thing which I think is going to be really important to talk about is what actually is a product manager. And this is important because particularly for me, when I was going from a project manager role to a product manager, it really wasn't clear to me how these two roles differed. So that's the first thing I want to talk about. So Marty Kagan, who is a well-known product leader, describes the product manager as being responsible for ensuring what gets built is both valuable and viable. So I like to break this definition down into 3 parts. The first thing you should know about being a product manager is that you're very much the middle person. So you sit in between the business, technology, and design functions, and it's really down to you to make sure that the teams know what is the most valuable product to build. The second thing you should know about being a product manager is that you're going to spend a lot of your time on prioritization. So product managers will use their skills and experience to figure out when a product or feature should get built based on the needs of the end user and the needs of the business. And the third thing that you should know about being a product manager is that product managers have the business context, and they also work with the design team and the engineers on a daily basis. So it's really down to them to make sure that whatever solution the team is building, that it can actually get built, because they're the ones who are aware of any design resource constraints or any technical limitations that the company might have at the time. So now that you understand the role, it's really important to start thinking about what skills you might have that you can already start talking about when you go to apply to these product manager roles. The one thing that I would say about when you're thinking about the skills that you need to be a PM, product manager roles are different at every company, and product managers themselves will have their own set of values and skills that they believe make a great product manager. But the ones I'm going to talk about today are a set of skills which I feel very much helped me break into product management. And those are the ones I'm going to talk you through today. So the first thing about being a product manager is about being a problem solver. So you should really relish the opportunity to solve big problems for the business. The second thing that was definitely really useful for me was that I was always naturally very curious. And curiosity is great when you're trying to break into product management, because it means that you're always challenging why things are the way they are. So why are users behaving the way they are? Why should we prioritize building this feature instead of another one? The other skill which is really important to have is being comfortable with data and being data driven. So product managers will spend a lot of their time mapping out opportunities, measuring features which they've shipped, and also prioritizing based on impact. So being comfortable with data is another skill which is really going to help you when you're trying to break into product management. The other thing is being a collaborative person and a team player is a really great skill to have when you're trying to break into product management. Product management is a collaborative role, and you have to work with so many different teams. It's really important that you are the person that can empathize with all these different teams and enjoy being the person that aligns these teams. And the one thing that I would say at this point is, don't worry if you don't have all these skills yet. So particularly for me, when I was breaking into product management, I had always worked with people, and I really pride myself on being a team player. But being data driven did not come naturally to me, and it was a skill that I really had to work hard at the beginning of my time as a product manager. So even if you don't feel like you have all these skills just yet, don't worry. These are all areas that you can start growing in as you become a more experienced product manager. But hopefully you can look at these skills and think that you already have the foundations of some of these that you can start thinking about when you apply and get to interviews for product manager roles. So now that you know what a product manager does and some of the skills that you can start, exploring, where do you actually start? So the first thing I would say is just get out there. So the hardest part in all of this is always starting. And the product management community is a really open and helpful one. So it's the best thing you can do. I remember when I started, I just connected on people with LinkedIn, so product managers and product leaders. And I just started sharing my story with them and asking them for advice. And that really helped me. The other thing you can do is there are so many Slack communities and meetup groups that you can get involved with. And these are all opportunities for you to start growing your product network so that eventually an opportunity might come up that is a perfect fit for you. And it just makes that journey a little bit easier for you. The next thing I would say is just start learning as much as you can about product management, particularly if you have no hands-on experience just yet. So General Assembly offer lots of introductory courses, which I highly recommend you exploring. And it just puts you kind of ahead of the game when you come to those interviews, and you can already really talk about the role of the product manager and how product development works in an organization. These are two books which I read at the beginning of my journey, and they were really helpful. So the first one is The Lean Startup by Eric Ries, and the second one is Inspired by Marty Kagan. And together, these books will give you a really good foundation of product management. So what is a product manager? What does the role involve? How do you ship products? How do you measure success? So I really recommend you pick up these two resources if you haven't already. The third thing I would say is that, if you're breaking into product management for the first time, the chances are is you're going to hear no quite a lot when you send off applications, when you, if you're lucky enough to get phone interviews or interviews straight away. And the one thing that I would say is don't let that deter you. So I remember when I was starting out, I sent off applications and I never heard back from anyone. But what it really did was it forced me to be reflective, iterative, and also just experimental with my application. So every time I would send something off and I wouldn't hear back, I would really reflect on that application and think, what could I do differently? What have I learned? So I'd really encourage you to just embrace those moments and really learn from them. When you eventually get to phone interviews or even face-to-face interviews, that's also when you're going to really realize what those gaps are for you. So be really aware of that and use it to really pinpoint those areas that you need to develop to get your first product manager role. So what are my top tips to help you find your first roles as product managers? The first thing I would say is choose a problem and don't focus too much on the product. So when you look for a problem that you're really interested in, this is really going to come through in your interviews. When you are passionate about the problem that the company is solving, the likelihood is that you're already a user of the product. So you already understand who the target user is. You'll have your own views on what can be improved about the product, what might not be optimized just yet. And that really gives you a good opportunity to really show how passionate you are about the problem that the company is solving. And that's going to really be an advantage when you come to these interviews. So when you set out looking for a problem that you want to solve, think about, just ask yourself, what problem do I want to solve? What companies are solving that problem? And what experience do I have to show that this problem is important to me? The second thing I would say is practice. And I know that this seems obvious, but when you don't have hands-on experience yet in product management, it's going to be really important that you go into these interviews and you're able to, nail the job, the questions which you can go in prepared for. So the first thing I would do is research and practice common product manager interview questions. There is an excellent resource by Gail Larkman McDowell, and that's a book called Cracking the PM Interview. I highly recommend this resource if you are planning on having interviews, in the near future. This resource is a great thing to be using as a reference. The last thing I would say on this part is just be honest. You're switching careers, you're breaking into a new role, and there is still going to be a lot of time for you to gain all the expertise. So just be honest with the people that are interviewing you about where you are right now and where you want to go. So things to have some prepared answers for are questions like, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? So at this point, of course, it's going to be important for you to talk about your transferable skills and sell yourself, but also be really open and transparent about your areas that you still need to develop and how the role is going to help you develop those areas. I know particularly for me, when I was open about these aspects in my interviews, my interviewers were always a lot more open to giving me constructive feedback because they appreciated that these were the areas that I still felt I need to develop, and they would locate, they would give me advice on how I could actually do that. The other question that you might get asked is, where do you want to be in the next 5 years, or where do you see your product career going? And this is really an opportunity for you to show your commitment to becoming a great product manager. This is the chance where you can say, in 5 years' time, I want to be a product leader, or in 5 years' time, I want to be a PM at this company. And that will just really reflect how important breaking into product management is for you. So for the last part of the presentation, I thought it would be really useful to go through some common questions that people have asked me when they've been breaking into product management. So the first thing I would say is, So this question is, what if I haven't managed a product or feature end to end yet? This is a great question, and it's often, the most worrying for people trying to break into product management because they haven't actually had end-to-end product experience yet. So there are two things that I would say here. The first thing I would say is make sure you know what product, managing a product end-to-end actually means. So what are the steps involved? Who's involved? How do you measure success? Those are the things to make sure that you understand. The next thing I would say is if you have the time, try and get involved in some kind of side project that will allow you to put into practice these aspects of product development alongside something. And it just means that you can go into those interviews and have something to talk about, rather than going in and just showing your interviewers that you know what it means. Now you have some experience to actually show that you've put it into practice in some way. Do I need to be technical? So this question comes up a lot as well. And of course, there are some product managers that come from technical backgrounds, but it's absolutely not a prerequisite. So don't let this deter you again. The one thing I would say is that although you don't have to be technical, you are going to have to be proactive about learning the foundations of the technology behind your product or even how it exists in your company. So there are two reasons for this. So the first reason is you need to really feel comfortable talking about the technical aspects of certain projects. And the second thing is you also want to make sure that you are establishing a really good relationship with your engineers. And the first step to doing this is making sure you understand, the stack that they're working with and what their constraints are and what they can do with the technology that they have. So even though you don't need to be technical, it's going to be really important that you're proactive about learning some foundations. What courses should I take? So this really depends on your current experience and what gaps you feel like you currently have before you can get to that product manager role. So for me, when I started out, I took a introduction to coding, I took an SQL course, I even participated in lots of user research interviews as a participant. And all of that experience was really useful to me. But that was very much personal because those are the gaps that I felt like I needed to fill before I got my first role as a product manager. So my piece of advice here would be, if there are gaps that you have that are really useful to becoming a product manager, if you have the resources and time available, then just go for it. And that opportunity won't be wasted. You will definitely gain value from that experience. What's the best route in? So the reality is there isn't a best route into product management. I think from my own experience, you can see that. I think that this question should really be, what's my best route in? So I would encourage you to really think about what is the best way for you with your experience, with where you currently are. What's the best way for you to be able to get that first product manager role? So you might be in a large company where there are already lots of PMs, and this might be a great opportunity for you to try and break in that way in your existing place. But it might not be like that for everyone who's watching this today. So the one thing I would encourage you to do is just think about what that strategy looks like for you. What is your best route into product management, and take it from there. So to summarize the presentation, the first thing I would say if you're thinking about switching careers and breaking into product management is first understand what a product manager is and figure out as much as you can if it's the role for you and if it's something that you see yourself doing in the next 5 years. Remember that there is no set path to becoming a product manager. And, each person is going to have their own unique set of skills which they're going to bring to the role. So just remember that. The next thing to remember is to start as soon as possible. So start connecting with people, start learning as much as you can, start sending off applications and experimenting and just learning as much as you can so that you can get yourself closer to breaking into product management and getting your first product manager role. And the last thing I would say is choose a problem and don't focus too much on the product itself. That's going to be really important for when you come to your interviews. So good luck. I hope that you found this presentation useful. If anyone has any feedback or they'd like to connect and ask me any questions about breaking into product management, these are my links, and I'm very happy for anyone to contact me to get some further advice or just to have a chat. So please do feel free to do that. Thank you, and best of luck to all of you.